Good morning, Palantards. How's it going, everyone? Back for another episode of Palantir and Coffee. Cheers. I wanted to get into the news this week and starting with Pipeline Builder. So I did some more reading this morning and I learned quite a bit. If you don't subscribe to Palantir's blog on Medium, dude, go subscribe because you get way more information in here. I think when I looked at the video this week, I didn't get a chance to dig into like the nitty gritty on the details, and I learned quite a bit this morning. So we're going to go over three quotes that really stood out to me. One is this idea that they can provide a managed serverless support for batch, micro batch, and streaming workflows across a full range of target outputs. That's amazing. So that's really cool. What they're essentially doing is creating infrastructure from your code, and the code is abstracted away in the UI of the pipeline builder. But that's awesome, and it fits right in with their existing paradigm. And not needing to manage infrastructure and just to be able to write code or visually build pipelines without worrying about the underlying infrastructure, that is sky compute. That is where Palantir differentiates itself. That's the future, in my opinion. So that's really cool to understand that that's built into the platform and that they're going to provision stuff for you. The other one is really the key to the success of a visual tool like Pipeline Builder, which is that it's got the same Git style change management and data health checks and security controls, right? So in Foundry, if you've seen my videos, you'll see that they have their own Git integration, meaning they've got their own change management system built in. You can do a pull request and review of all the changes made in your pipelines. You can run unit tests ahead of releasing your pipelines. Those unit tests and other quality checks are run before your pipeline is deployed, not after. So you don't find out like 5 hours into a job that you broke the pipeline. And that all leads to really a huge increase in overall stability, which is like the critical factor, in my opinion, in the success of a lot of these big data projects, is making sure those pipelines are predictable and stable. Because if not, what ends up happening is a lot of those big data projects will collapse. If you can't get the data in a realistic amount of time and you're spending tons of compute resources and engineering resources to do it, a lot of times those initiatives just fail. So that is the key to success. It's a huge part of Pipeline Builder, and it's something that even a lot of people in the comments who are criticizing Pipeline Builder are just completely overlooking. They don't understand that a Git integration, like when you have Databricks where they say, we'll integrate with your GitHub account or your change management system, yeah, that's not what we're doing here. This is a totally different paradigm, right? And it's way more effective. It's not a systems integration nightmare, and it's a benefit out of the box from day zero. So there's a huge differentiator there, and I want people to pay attention to. Now here is the big news that no one picked up on, including me initially, which is right here. So we engineered next generation data transformation backend, which acts as an intermediary between the logic creation and the execution substrate. What does that mean? It means they built this abstraction layer, probably what's called an abstract syntax tree or an AST. And so in software, when you write code, a lot of times a compiler will transform it into this intermediary known as like an AST, and then that can become binary out the other end. Now, Databricks announced at the AI Summit they have something similar, and what they're using it for is to change the dynamics of how Spark can run. So, like, basically, they want you to be able to build Spark queries anywhere and execute them anywhere, whether it's in your IDE or in an application or whatever. But to do that, you can't send code over the wire. And the reason you can't send code over the wire is just highly inefficient, and data types don't always match, and there's all kinds of problems. So what Databricks did was they created this AST, which gets compiled to a binary, and that gets sent out to the server, and then the server can execute that. And so I think what they've done here is something similar, where they're going to create an abstract syntax tree out of your pipeline, and then they can compile it out to any target they want, And that's next generation, right? So like Databricks hasn't even fully rolled this out yet. Like and there's no visual UI on top of it, which led me to believe like Palantir might have just kneecapped Databricks. Like Databricks may be working towards a visual system, and their first step was to create that substrate, that AST, which can then be compiled into binary and sent over to the server and executed from there as a query plan. Whereas Palantir may have just kneecapped them by jumping straight not only to the abstraction layer, the AST, but then also having the visual UI to let the non-technical people build these things. And if that happened, like Databricks probably just got punched in the freaking gut. So like it's crazy to see them kind of competing and seeing these things, these two types of things being released. It would be cool if they would release some kind of a more technical explanation of how they're doing this, and we can compare it like with what Databricks is doing. But by having that abstraction layer, what's cool is you're now agnostic as to like the execution targets, right? So like, and that's what they state in here, is that they can also output to different execution targets. And I think they mentioned Spark and Flink. So they have different, and that lets them like, construct streaming versus batch pipelines. So that is a huge innovation. Hats off to the team. That is not an easy thing to do, and it's going to enable a huge amount of innovation for them. They're going to get the same benefits Databricks is going to get in terms of how how that pipeline code can integrate now with IDEs and other real-time applications, and being able to send queries like to the server in real time. This could power that too. I don't know if they're working on that or if they're going to release something about that. I'm going to ask them about it though, because I didn't pick up on this initially, but there's so many applications beyond just having the visual tool that can now represent really complicated code and logic and send that off to a server for execution and management. So really big news here. I think we all need to look for more information. I asked for documentation. I think it's about a month away. It's either 1 or 2 months before this thing goes GA, and we get more info on how this all works. But dude, like, blown away, really cool, huge news. The other cool thing is that from here you can link over to this data integration page, and it looks like they're selling this as a standalone product. It's deeply integrated into Foundry, so it's obviously not like that standalone, but they do have a separate page and a team, so they call it the Pipeline Builder team, that appears to be selling this product. So that's really cool. You can also read more about the project, and again, full version control, people. You cannot underestimate how important that is for the stability of a pipeline. There's a lot of cool features in here. Probably not going to mean a lot to a lot of other people, but to me, I was really blown away with everything they put in here. But this is cool because maybe there's a lower entry point here. Like maybe this is like the way they compete with Databricks and Snowflake, is they democratize the data engineering more. Even as a person who's a software engineer, like I actually appreciate Pipeline Builder because I don't need to write so much Spark code. Like I don't work in Spark every day. I do have data engineering problems almost every day, but I typically don't work in those tools. So like having a tool that can like make me more productive as a software engineer who's not an expert in those things would be pretty awesome. What's going on out there in YouTube land? Well, a couple cool things, like All in Pod today dropped. Freaking awesome. I don't know if you guys subscribe to the All in Pod, but I've been watching these guys for a long time. Great podcast, super influential VC figures in the tech industry. So check that out if you're not subscribed. They give away a ton of information for free, which I love. Jay also put out a video, and I have to disagree with you, man. Jay's like, talking about the strategy and their top-down approach, and that it looks like they're, having lots of success, and that their first 5 years look better than Snowflake's first 5 years, but I'm going to have to disagree with you both on the revenue growth curve. If you look at Snowflake's revenue growth curve, it's exponential, right? It looks like the beginning of an exponential curve. I don't have Databricks' numbers. Maybe someone could get out there and find it, but I did pull some stats that we'll look at that I think are a good counter narrative to what you're thinking about, Jay. Also, I'm the one who put out there the strategy, right? Like, from I was the person who was saying, like, the way the strategy makes sense is you generate network effects from those customers that do business with these Fortune 500 companies, and because Foundry is kind of purpose built to operate in a consortium model. Like, I totally get that, man. But I think what you don't understand is, like, the competition gets a vote. Every time I say that, people don't know what that means. What it means is, for every organization Snowflake and Databricks get in, that's a competition now, a competitive offering that the organization's already adopted. And those products, their feature matrix is quickly aligning with the Foundry feature matrix. Now, I'm not saying the products are better, but that doesn't matter at that point, because what you're fighting is something organizations already know, or they already have an MSA in place, a master service agreement, that people are trained in it, and you're fighting against that now, right? So, like, that's a problem. That's why I always say, like, if they don't ramp this dev community, they got real issues. And I'm calling this the Jerry Maguire moment for Palantir. And we'll get into in a minute what that means. But, like, let's take a look at the stats. Snowflake, 6,300 customers. They have about 2/5 of the Fortune 500. I don't know if people know that. And these companies are already spending a gazillion, dollars with them. I think the average customer spend on Snowflake has ballooned to $250,000. I think that's a problem for them, by the way. Like, I don't know if their platform can deliver the value. They've been ramping product development so fast that I question the validity of how good those features are. Although, full disclosure, I haven't used all their new Lakehouse features. I don't know how good they are compared to Databricks or the features that are in Foundry, but traditionally speaking, like their technology would be subpar compared to Databricks and certainly subpar compared to Foundry, but it won't matter, right? So like, this is why we always say like the best product doesn't always win, because it's about distribution too. Like Peter Thiel's 7 tests include distribution for a reason, and they also include timing, right? So like Palantir missed the market on the data warehouse. That could end up being the thing that eventually really hinders their adoption rates, because the data warehouse is kind of like the cornerstone of all of this, right? Like the data warehouse is, it's the place where all the data is, and you know, if you're selling a big data OS, you kind of need that platform. Now Foundry has a built-in platform for that, but the problem is that if these other companies have chosen another sort of product to be the Rosetta Stone, and now start offering all these features that look a lot like your features, you're really going to struggle to gain adoption. And that's the thing they're fighting, right? And so like Databricks as well, 7,000 customers, right? 150% net dollar retention rate, right? So like I'm a little concerned here. And also there's an article out here on Bloomberg that pulls these features. I can't see their revenue numbers. I wish I could. I wish I could see like how their revenue's ramping, but probably also looks like the beginning of an exponential curve. Back in February, Databricks was launching a financial services product, which is exactly the industry that Palantir is trying to get into. So like these companies are going head to head, and if you're an established vendor that already exists, that you trust and your people are trained on, and that the engineers actually like, and then you have a competitor come along who seems arrogant, and the engineers don't know anything about it, maybe don't even like the company because they're nervous about their government work or whatever. We all know the politics in tech. You're going to get your ass handed to you, right? And so like the Jerry Maguire moment is like, if you all remember in Jerry Maguire when he's on the phone after he quits his job, he's trying to get as many customers to sign with him, clients to sign with him as he can, and Shug's on the other line just taking them all. That's going to be Databricks, the Snowflake, or the Shug, right? So like that's going to freaking be a big problem. And if they don't get with the program and start adopting a strategy that's proven to work, they're going to face their Jerry Maguire moment. It might be a year from now, it might be 2 years from now, and I don't want to see that happen. I want to see this platform rolled out to everyone. I want to be part of a thriving developer community that I can help, contribute to. So I think that at the end of the day, Palantir needs to take this seriously. I don't believe that a top-down strategy is going to work. I think we see signs already that their competition is just eating their lunch, man, and we got to take that into account. I understand, we're looking at early numbers, but again, really look at those the growth rate of revenue, like whose looks like an exponential curve. Also, we have evidence that Palantir's growth and adoption is slowing. Like that doesn't bode well for a strategy that says we're going to generate huge network effects. If that's the case, you should have huge growth, not just like small incremental growth that looks more linear, which their growth does look rather linear compared to these other companies. You should be seeing ramping of an exponential curve if that strategy is actually paying off. So I have serious questions about the validity of the strategy. I don't think it's the right strategy to encourage adoption and to compete head-to-head with companies that are making huge inroads. So anyway, that's what's going on in YouTube land. Palantir Weekly was lit last night, so be sure to check it out. Comment section was pretty crazy, so definitely check that out. If you rewatch it, make sure comments are on, and I'll see you guys next week for more Palantir and Coffee.